I call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Would you roll call, please?
Director Burnworth?
Here.
Director Goodsoe?
Here.
Director Medard?
Is absent.
Director Proctor?
Here.
Director Berker?
Present.
Director Valdez?
Here.
Director Garcia?
Here.
And with that, we're going to break into closed session at 6:02 p.m. And now return from closed session and start open session at 7:46 p.m. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, do you want me to give the report out of closed session?
Yes, please.
The board took the following actions in closed session. The board took action to create the following positions for public employees: a financial strategist, assistant board secretary, administrative coordinator, technology media coordinator, assistant treasurer, which we are converting the title to accounting clerk, and janitorial services. The board's action on the contracts for such consultants will be taken during item 11B on the open session calendar.
Perfect. Now we're going to move on to item 6, consider approval of the agenda. In the case of an emergency, items may be added to the agenda by a majority vote of the board of directors. An emergency is defined as a work stoppage, a crippling disaster, or other activity that severely impairs public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of sequential order as a priority is determined by the board of directors. The board may take action on any items appearing on the agenda. Do I have a motion to consider approval of the agenda?
I so move.
I second.
I have a motion by Berker and a second by Proctor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to public comments. At this time, the board will vote comments on any agenda item. If any person wishes to be heard, please stand, address the president, identify yourself, and state the subject for the comment. Time limited for each speaker is 3 minutes total, not 3 minutes per item, but rather 3 minutes per speaker for all items on the agenda. A total of 15 minutes shall be allocated for each item for all members of the public. The board may find it necessary to limit the total time allowable for all public comments on items not appearing on the agenda at any one meeting to 1 hour. Do we have anybody here that would like to make a public comment?
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members and staff. Jesus Solano, 426 Rosemont, Calexico. I have a concern regarding 918. There's a provision there that stipulates that the existing board members that are apparently going to be replaced on this first term of the election are not qualified to run for the election position until, I believe, the next year. I strongly believe that should be amended to where if they're willing to participate in the election, for them to be permitted. And one of the reasons that I bring up for you is because you as a board member know that when you come into a board, there's a learning curve. And the less you stress that learning curve is better for the board as a whole. And it's better in the best interest of the community. So I would like for you, for this board, to take that into consideration. That is one. The other topic is thank you for continuing the plan of finishing the clinic at Calexico. We appreciate that. The other thing is, however, I believe that still going to be some funding left, and I have brought it up before, and I'll bring it up again. I have to take into consideration, Raleigh has a hospital, El Centro has a hospital. We have hospital wheels, 2 units. Eventually, those units will need to be replaced. And I would like for this board to take that into consideration. The last topic is there's a no confidence vote. In your board, there's a representative that apparently represents Calexico. There's no confidence vote there. we strongly recommend this board to have a strong conversation with that person for him to resign. And once he resigns, if he's got any integrity or courage or some honor of that, it would be up to this board, LAFCO, or the Board of Supervisors to replace someone for that vacancy. If not, so be it. Leave it vacant until the election comes around. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else here for public comment? Just step up to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. Council members, thank you for all of the heavy lifting that you've been doing on this 8918. I did work with Ivhd in regards to starting this because we've always been working in silos and we have had 2 hospitals in Calexico, nothing. But I would like to also have you consider some of the proposals that Dr. Tyson has been doing with Heffernan Healthcare District. I don't know how we're going to be moving forward with that urgent care, but there's some equipment that he requested to purchase. But there has to be some sort of strategic plan on how we can move forward with those services. We do need them. But he had requested $400,000 for a CT scan. So I don't know what are the plans going forward. If you guys can kind of share that. I know you're just settling them in after Heffernan has been closed, but I don't know how we're going to move forward with his proposals. So that would be something, if we can see that on the agenda for the next meeting.
So it's actually the update of what's going on with Heffernan is actually on our agenda, and we're going to discuss that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Margaret Sousa, and I'm the Executive Director of Shore Health Bank Center in El Centro, California. Actually, I had no intention of speaking tonight, but I wanted to commend you for the job that you're doing. I know it's very difficult. I don't know a lot of you personally, but I know of you. I don't think we would have picked a better board than we have today. Unfortunately, we're in a county where there's so much people that have nothing else to do but to run around to meetings and complain. I'm not one of those. I'm very grateful with every one of you. And please, I'm just letting you know, keep on doing the good work. It's not easy what you're doing. It's difficult. You know, I work in a place where I can't make everybody happy. But I had to stand up at my 78 years old, and I'm not going to stop fighting. I'm sick and tired of seeing the same people over and over again trying to change. You know, we're not ignorant. You're not ignorant. We all know what we're doing. You know, I wish there was a way where it could stop. You know, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments here tonight? And we'll move on to item 8, the consent agenda. Any member of the board, staff, or public may request that items for the consent calendar be removed for discussion. Items so removed shall be acted upon separately immediately following approval of the items remaining on the consent calendar. Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
I have a motion by Berker and a second by Valdez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to item 9, board comments, reports on meeting and events attended by directors and authorization for directors, attendance at upcoming meetings and events by directors. First, do we want to start with the report by Education and Outreach Ad Hoc Committee?
Sure, I can take that one. We meet every Friday at 12 p.m. And we've met since our last meeting. We've met every Friday since our last meeting. And we're making some good progress. We're actively looking for ways to educate our community, be there for our community. We have a number of options on the table that are coming to fruition. And so we look forward to sharing that with our community as far as town halls and things of that nature. Also, we're looking at proposing to our board to create a position for a professional public relations professional to get the message out to our community, to get the facts out as to what AB 918 is all about, what we've accomplished, what still lays ahead, and how what good that's going to do for our community. And so that's where we're at so far. We have another meeting tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
Thank you. Do we have any reports by the negotiation committee? Okay, well, I'm actually on the negotiation committee, so again, we meet every Friday. What we've been doing is, recently it's been going through all of, everything that's happened with the
Yeah, I can give a
Heffernan.
Yeah, and I can
Not
give a
our
brief.
attorney to get that.
Yeah, I can give a brief report to the most recent ad hoc AB 918 negotiation committee meetings have been to discuss the Heffernan dissolution and make sure. So under the resolution that this board adopted amending and recommending a dissolution date for Heffernan, they authorized and directed me as legal counsel to do all the things necessary to affect the purposes of the resolution. So this has been a good opportunity for the ad hoc committee to connect with me and my staff to make sure, okay, we're sending out these letters, who's going to sign this, who's going to do this, and I'll give a thorough rundown on all of the actions that we've taken since July 25 during the item 10 update. But the last couple ad hoc committee meetings have been focused on Heffernan.
And do we have any brief reports by directors on meetings or events attended?
I did have the pleasure of speaking to the Holtville City Council to just update them as I do every month to give them the good news about what we were planning on doing. At that time, LAFCO had not made their decision yet with Calexico, but I did let them know that that was something that we had done in the meeting to move the date up, and let them know that we're moving ahead and that things are going along well. So it was always fun to give them a positive update on the things that this board is accomplishing. So I'm grateful to them for putting me here and giving me the opportunity to keep them up to date. So.
Thank you. Does anybody else? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 10, update, discussion, and possible action regarding Heffernan dissolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take that item. So, since the last meeting, a lot has happened. We adopted at the last meeting the amended recommendation for a new dissolution date for Heffernan. LAFCO, which is included in your agenda packet, LAFCO adopted a resolution on July 25, 2024 to effect the Heffernan dissolution effective that date. Pursuant to the mandates of AB 918 and pursuant to their authority as Imperial LAFCO. So we got that signed resolution on July 25, and starting on July 26, we have, thanks to the diligence that was conducted with Heffernan well ahead of time, we had ready letters, documentation prepared for the turnover. So I'm just going to go through a quick, for the board's benefit, for the public's benefit, list of the assets that were transferred to Ivhd as a successor agency upon dissolution of Heffernan. There's real property at 400 Mary Ave, which is built out to be an urgent care clinic. There are benefits and rights pursuant to the lease to Tyson Medical. There's a 5-year lease with Tyson Medical, and there is going to be some discussion had with respect to taking that over and what does and does not go along with it. We've been in communication with Dr. Tyson and some of his folks, and so those conversations are going to keep happening as we get a better understanding of the progress on the construction of the urgent care. There's real property at 601 Herbert Avenue. There's a promissory note for the Mega Park parcel, and there are insurance policies and bank accounts and office equipments reported on the balance sheets. We immediately sent out letters to all the outgoing directors of the Heffernan Memorial Healthcare District, informing the directors on behalf of this board and the board chair that Heffernan has been dissolved and that they shouldn't purport to represent the Heffernan district anymore because there's no longer a Heffernan district. asking them to submit for reimbursement any outstanding items that they may have incurred, if they have business expense reimbursements related to Heffernan, asking them to return any real property if they have any computers or anything that belongs to Heffernan. We directed them with the consent of Mr. Proctor to drop off equipment with Director Proctor. We sent letters to all of the independent contractors and folks that Heffernan has contracts with, informing them of the dissolution and IBHD's succession. We terminated one independent contractor, which is the general counsel, and we have sent letters to Tyson Medical and Calexico Megapark, letters to the banks and insurance agencies letting them know about the succession. We have an outstanding list of things to do, which is on this list of items for 10, A, B, and C. So one of the necessary things we need to do, Heffernan banks with Chase, and since we're the successor agency, we need to take over that bank account. In order to do so, this board needs to authorize who are the authorized representatives who can access that account. We're going to need to fill out the profile for signer, authorized rep, or senior manager. So my recommendation is that this board designate who has signature authority for banking purposes through a motion and a vote, so that we can attach the minutes to the Chase documentation, and so we can authorize that person or persons to be authorized signers in order to access the bank accounts and pay out invoices. The recommendation is for the signature authority to be granted to the person who ends up having the administrative coordinator position, as well as the board chair, the board treasurer, and Mr. Valdez as the Heffernan liaison, because he is the person who had both access to the bank accounts when it was Heffernan's and access to the bank accounts, as Ivhd, and so it kind of makes sense that he would have that institutional knowledge to recognize payors, historically, and so we could have, it makes prudent sense to have a few authorized representatives. This doesn't mean those people can go access the bank account anytime. We're also adopting an invoice payment and purchasing policy in this board meeting, but we just need to know, especially if someone's unavailable, out of town, who can sign checks and who's got the authority to just, go to Chase Bank and talk on behalf of Ivhd. The board chair also, because the board chair is someone that's indicated under the invoice purchasing and payment policy as a second signer. So maybe we should take these one at a time, but I think the board should take it one at a time with respect to the motions, but I'm going to keep going through B and C because they're all related. So B is execution of quitclaim deeds. They are attached to the agenda packet. And it's basically, this is cleanup. So it is a quitclaim deed to quitclaim Ivhd as successor agency to Heffernan, the two real property assets that were owned by Heffernan, quitclaim them to Ivhd so that they're in Ivhd's name. And so we would basically be executing the quitclaim deed to ourselves as successor agency, to ourselves as successor agency under the authorization granted to us by the Health and Safety Code 8918. And that's really just for, so that if someone goes to the county and looks at property records, they could say, who owns this property? And then I could say, what's Heffernan? Oh, that was dissolved. What happened? Who owns it now? There's just clean record, clean title, so that they say, oh, it's Ivhd's now. So those are the two quitclaim deeds that we need a motion and a vote to move forward with. And then finally, there is discussion and approval of the board policy regarding invoice purchasing and payments. This is a very, very straightforward policy. I'm going to read through it because it's important for the board and the public to understand what it says. It's 2 pages, really straightforward, but basically when invoices are received, the invoices would be received by the person in the assistant treasurer. We're going to modify that to administrative accounting clerk position, who would receive the invoices, perform what's called a unique invoice review, which is just making sure it's not an invoice that you've already paid. And the current amount due, prepare the summary, attach the supporting documentation, and prepare a check summary, send to the administrative coordinator for review and approval. The administrative coordinator would then review the invoice, compare it against the budget as applicable, verify that it's an entity we have a contract with, and approve the summary invoice and deliver approval via writing, via email with the backup to the board treasurer, or in his or her absence or unavailability, the board chair for approval. And then it would go to the board representatives' review and approval, so that we always have an elected official looking at the invoices, looking at the summaries, approving it. And the board treasurer, or in his or her absence or unavailability, the board chair, or in his or her absence or unavailability, the vice chair, shall review and approve payment, and then send the approval via email, again, so that there's a written chain, to both the administrative coordinator and assistant treasurer. Assistant treasurer would then prepare the check, get the first wet signature from the administrative coordinator, second wet signature from the second signer, who is one of those 3 elected officials, based on availability. And then the administrative coordinator or the assistant treasurer by month's end sends out the checks to the vendors. So every check would have 3 sets of eyes on it, the accounting clerk, the administrative coordinator, and an elected official, and 2 wet signatures before being subject to approval. That is the proposed policy for now, given the current structure of this organization. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and then my recommendation is to take the actions one at a time under item 10.
Do you have any questions from the board?
I have one question. I don't know if it applies or not, but on the quick claim deeds, the insurance policies will change into Ivhd's name as well.
Yes, so we've sent over notice to the insurance companies about the dissolution and our position as successor agency. I think what's going to have to happen, and maybe Tomas has talked to the insurance companies, but they're going to have to put the policies in our name.
Right.
But yes, that's something, especially when it comes to property insurance, that we're going to want to make sure is in our name. If anything were to happen before the switchover happens, we still have authority, because we are the successor agency by law, to execute the contracts and to execute the sort of insurance provisions that we have.
And we still have a liability as well.
Yes, yeah. So it's just really switching over the documentation to reflect our name.
Okay.
Everything else stays the same.
So do I have a motion, or do I have any questions? Any comments from the members of the public? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for designation of signature authority for banking purposes.
I'm going to reiterate the recommendation is to designate for signature authority for banking purposes the admin coordinator, the board chair, the board treasurer, and Mr. Valdez in his capacity as the Heffernan representative.
I so moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Berger and a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. We'll move on to the next one.
The recommendation is to approve the quitclaim deeds for the 2 real property transfers located at 400 Mary Ave and 601 Herbert Ave.
I make a motion to approve the quitclaim deeds for the real property transfers of 601 Heber Avenue, Calexico, California, and 400 Mary Avenue, Calexico, California.
I second.
We have a motion by Garcia and a second by Proctor. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
The recommended action for 10C is to approve, sorry, I'm trying to get it by name, the Imperial Valley Healthcare District invoice processing and payment policy attached to the agenda.
I would make the motion to approve it with the corrections to accounting clerk in place of assistant treasurer.
Thank you.
Do you have a second?
I second.
I have a motion by Didsell and a second by Garcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Great. We will continue to keep you posted with respect to Heffernan dissolution changes or updates as they become relevant throughout the month.
Now we'll move on to item 11, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the following resolution of the Board of Directors to the Imperial Valley Healthcare District expressing intent to recommend funding mechanism to voters no later than December 31st, 2025.
I'll take this one too, Madam Chair. So this resolution, which at the board's pleasure you can choose to adopt or not, it's optional. This follows our discussion of last month, wherein, or maybe 2 months ago, I'm forgetting now, wherein we sent a request to the legislature on July 5th to ask for an extension of that deadline that would put a ballot measure on the November 2024 election for a funding mechanism. We've already had ample conversation about why this board doesn't feel comfortable making a recommendation on a funding mechanism today. There's lots of reasons why we haven't had an opportunity and full information that are outlined partially in the resolution to make a reasoned and well-informed determination regarding a funding mechanism. So this is really more for internal policing, peace of mind to the public, that this is something this board intends to do. I will say that we also have received a letter from Assembly Member Garcia. I'm just going to read from it. It's a public record available along with the agenda packet. It says, this letter responds to your letter dated July 5, 2024 regarding Ivhd's request to extend the deadline. I'm paraphrasing now. First, we congratulate you on all the hard work you have done to date in implementing AB 918. We appreciate your efforts to secure improved healthcare access to healthcare for the Imperial Valley community. Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District's lawsuit and unwillingness to provide the necessary information to propose to the voters a countywide funding mechanism has only delayed and obstructed the stabilization of our local healthcare system and AB 918's objectivity. Please be assured that not meeting the funding mechanism provision in AB 918 does not constitute an impediment to Ivhd's progress. The intent behind the language of AB 918 was not to establish this provision as a mandatory requirement for advancing the Ivhd's objectives, the dissolution of Pioneers and Heffernan Memorial Healthcare Districts, nor the acquisition of ECRMC. The March or November 2024 election recommendation was included to provide a timeline based on local healthcare stakeholders' concerns on the urgency of the matter. Under the California Health and Safety Code, the Ivhd retains the authority to propose a funding mechanism for voter approval at a later date. Specifically, this code allows the district to levy special taxes, issue bonds, or create other financial mechanisms upon voter approval, providing you with the additional avenues to secure the necessary resources to fulfill your mission, even if the original timeline is not met. Thus, we feel confident that the Ivhd Board of Directors can best determine both the appropriate funding mechanism as well as the appropriate timing for calling for such a funding mechanism. Furthermore, please know that our office is committed to supporting Ivhd in every way possible, working with the Office of State Senator Padilla. We have been preparing legislative efforts to remove the language in Health and Safety Code Section 32499.6C3 that calls for Ivhd's Board of Directors to recommend a funding mechanism by the November 2024 election, should that be necessary, in clarifying Ivhd's legal obligations. So, summarized, our elected representatives are preparing a legislative effort to remove that deadline, and they're relying on the provisions of Health and Safety Code, which do exist under the that local healthcare district law, that allows you to propose a funding mechanism to voters anytime, which we will be in a better position to do once we have the necessary records and access to information that we need. So I think, this is a great peace of mind that Assemblymember Garcia has given us with respect to the goal of AB 918, the intention of the bill, and this board's obligation and ability to adopt a funding mechanism into the future. So with that, I think you can choose to adopt the resolution as drafted or not, however you feel best. Again, this is just kind of a peace of mind resolution expressing an intention to do this at some point in the next calendar year plus. But as stated in the letter, you really could do it anytime, and you have the authority to determine the timing appropriate timing for calling for such a funding mechanism.
I make a motion to adopt a resolution of the Board of Directors of Imperial Valley Healthcare District expressing intent to recommend funding mechanism to voters by no later than December 31st, 2025.
Second.
Then everybody else, have a discussion? Sorry. No worries, I have a motion on the table. So if we pass this, are we now funded to have one by that?
You're not you're bound by yourself, so you can unbind yourself anytime because resolutions can be superseded or amended or replaced by another resolution. But this is a way of holding your feet to the fire.
Maybe sooner than December.
Sure. Yeah, it's by no later than December. It could be tomorrow. Well, any duly noticed board meeting, public meeting.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Do I have any public comments? Seeing none, I have a motion by Garcia and a second by Director Proctor. All in favor, or no, do we have to do a roll call vote for resolution?
You only have to do a roll call actually for ordinances, but you can do a roll call vote if you'd like, yes.
Well, that's fine. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now we will move on to item D, independent contractor agreements for the following positions. Number one is the financial strategist, evaluation regarding the two competing proposals. So the board discussed during closed sessions, we thoroughly vetted both proposals. And we talked over them, obviously very greatly. So with that, I'll leave it open for board member comments or somebody make a motion. To approve the two proposals.
So I felt that the BRG proposal, they're both comparable, even in terms of pricing. However, in reading the details of the two proposals, I am more comfortable with going with the BRG proposal.
Is that a motion?
If somebody,
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'm making a motion.
Second.
So the motion on the table is to, correct me if I'm wrong, approve a professional services agreement with BRG, Berkeley Research Group, for a position as a financial strategist.
Yes.
Do you have any other board member comments? Do you have any public comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Now we'll go on to the second one, for the administrative coordinator.
So the board had a discussion in closed session about the creation of these positions for independent contractors, specifically for the independent contractors that were employed by Heffernan, to make sure that those folks can come over and take the same care of the Heffernan resources that they did when they were with Heffernan, but now under the supervision and guidance of this board. So included in the agenda packet is a template professional services agreement that has been drafted for the board's consideration. There's some blanks in it which we would fill in with the contractor's name and information, but all the contractors' agreements would be the same. There are different scopes of work that were created for the different positions. Again, the positions are administrative coordinator, technology media coordinator, assistant board secretary, janitorial services, and accounting clerk, which is replacing the position of assistant treasurer. So the recommended action is to approve the the independent contractor services agreements with the 5 independent contractors under the scopes of work attached to the agenda packet, with direction to legal counsel to finalize as appropriate.
Do you have any questions on the board? Any public comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So we'll
Can we do them all together?
Yes, you can do all 5 in one fell swoop if you'd like, since they're all listed and attached to the agenda packet, or you could do one at a time.
Was your motion for all 5?
That motion for all 5.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Valdez and a second by Garcia. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Now we go on to item C, board policy regarding press statements.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take this one. This is a very straightforward policy, just so that the public and press understand, folks, this district's procedures for press releases, public statements, and statements to the press as we move forward with our acquisition or our hopeful acquisition of ECRMC and eventual acquisition of PMH. We thought it would be good just to have a very short policy on the folks that are authorized to provide statements on behalf of the Ivhd Board of Directors. The proposal is for the following folks to have authority to provide statements on behalf of the board. The district board chair, the 8918 Community Outreach and Education Ad Hoc Committee until it's officially terminated. Any district committee that's created and authorized by this board expressly for this purpose at a duly noticed public meeting. So that's if you want to create a committee down the line that's going to have continuing jurisdiction over all PR stuff. Maybe you want to create that position or that committee, maybe you don't. It's in there just in case you do, so we don't have to come back and change this. And then we've got staff or contractors expressly authorized for this purpose by the board of directors at a duly noticed public meeting. And that is really in consideration of item 11D, because this board has considered creating a possible position for like a press person, which we're calling a public education and community outreach person. That'd be a staff person. So if you bring on a staff person who's authorized for that purpose to draft up statements and issue them on behalf of the board, that person would be an authorized representative to give statements. That's it. That's all the policy says.
Any discussion? Any public comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the board policy regarding press statements.
Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Garcia and a second by Berger. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Now, item D, creation of possible approval of public education community outreach coordinator position.
Yes, and that is, I believe, probably going to be led by the folks on the AB 918 Public Education and Community Outreach Ad Hoc.
Okay. Is this something that ad hoc can we give them authority to do a?
No, you can't give an ad hoc committee decision-making authority. You can make a decision and then designate someone on the ad hoc to do it or sign it or whatever the decision you make is. It's my understanding that the work that the ad hoc committee has been doing to discuss what kind of public education and community outreach they want to do in order to inform the public about AB 918 and the progress that we're making, would probably be best served by having someone serve in a paid position, like having staff come on and draft the press statements, communicate with the press. I know this board has been doing a lot of that behind the scenes itself, but typically you'd have a staff person helping you do that and being the point person on that. So if the ad hoc committee wants to come back to the September board meeting with a recommendation on a proposed consultant to do that work, then the thing to do at this meeting would be to direct the ad hoc committee to bring back a solicitation or a proposal. Okay. If that's what you want.
So do I have a motion to have the ad hoc committee bring back a proposal?
I make a motion to have
I say if we need to make a motion, I so move that they bring us back a proposal.
I'll second that.
Perfect. I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Garcia. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll go to item 12, update regarding 8918 progress.
Yes. So the folks at VMG have communicated to us that they have all of the documentation necessary. In other words, the diligence process in terms of documentation is complete. So now next steps, they're in the process of building out their financial model for the hospital. They're going to schedule a diligence meeting with ECRMC management to discuss recent history, market dynamics, historical, financial, and operational trends, prospective opportunities. They're going to get some more information from ECRMC and then do a site visit of the property so that they're walking the capital assets that are owned by City of El Centro and ECRMC. So VMG is making progress, which is great, but this takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a month or 2 or 3 to complete a really thorough asset valuation like this. And at the end of the day, as a reminder, what we're going to have is an appraisal of the hospital, its assets, its liabilities, everything it owns, so that we understand what we would be acquiring if we move forward with that acquisition. So that's good progress being made by VMG. And then, of course, huge progress in the way of the Heffernan dissolution and acquisition of those assets and liabilities. So that's kind of step 1 in a potential 3-step process here with respect to Heffernan, Pioneers, and ECRMC. So I really commend the board on its good work and in getting stuff done. That's my update on AB 918 progress.
The next one's with you two, general counsel update and future policies.
Yeah, so, we've talked about this before. I think that especially now that we have a bank account and we're going to have some independent contractors, it's in this board's interest to start considering some more policies. A business expense and reimbursement policy is one we should consider, and potentially a procurement policy on how to procure solicitations, how to procure potential contractors in the future. And then we're going to have to adopt, and I'll bring back, a conflict of interest code, because as I told you at your very first meeting, you are already Form 700 filers by statute. But you're going to have, now that you have some consultants and folks that you've retained as consultants that are going to be making financial recommendations directly to this board, they also should be Form 700 filers that are disclosing, financial, potential conflicts of interest and information to the public through the Form 700 process. Disclosures of economic interest, that's what they're called. So I'll bring back a conflict of interest code, which is a kind of a long process because you need to bring back a proposed code, you need to post it for 45 days, you need to inform filers, inform the public, give the public an opportunity to comment, and then bring back after 45 days the motion, the approved conflict of interest code, and then send it over to the county board of supervisors. They're going to be the filers that we file our Form 700s with. But what do you think about other potential policies that might be appropriate to bring back to the next board meeting? As I said, I think a business expense and reimbursement policy is a good one, and potentially maybe at some point down the line a procurement policy. I don't know if there's others that you'd like me to specifically bring back.
I think, when I'm thinking procurement, I think when, we merge everything together, there's going to be those policies in place.
Yes.
And as opposed to having you draft a new one that will cost money.
Yeah, we could give that one, we could hold on that one, because I'm sure both hospitals have a procurement policy, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to be governed by law, and then a lot of stuff that you will have the ability to control. But you probably will default to whatever the hospitals are doing once they come under your guidance. Okay, so maybe just conflict of interest in a business. The reason business expense and reimbursement policy happens is because if someone, one of your contractors or one of you, has to print out a bunch of stuff or whatever it is, especially if it's a board member, under AB 1234, you can't get reimbursed unless you've got a written policy saying how that works. So it is kind of appropriate. It doesn't mean that business expenses are going to start going through the roof or anything, but it's just a policy on how it works if they do get incurred.
Perfect.
Okay.
Do you have any other recommendations by any board members?
That's all we need.
Perfect.
Those
Okay.
two are good for
I don't like giving you more work than you.
Yeah, I understand. Definitely understand. There's
Alright.
plenty of work to go around. Already.
And then our final item of the night, items for future agenda. Does anybody have anything that we should schedule for future discussions at upcoming meetings? Nope. Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 8:31 p.m.